The notion that scientists and mainstream media are deceiving the public about climate change is a popular conspiracy theory that has gained significant traction in recent years. Proponents of this idea claim that researchers and journalists are intentionally distorting or suppressing the truth about global warming to further their own interests or promote a particular agenda. However, a closer examination of the evidence and the motivations behind such claims reveals a more complex and nuanced reality. One of the primary drivers of this conspiracy theory is the perception that scientists and the media are pushing a uniform, alarmist narrative about climate change, which is allegedly driven by a desire for funding, attention, and control. Critics argue that researchers are beholden to government grants and corporate interests, which dictate the scope and direction of the research, leading to a biased and sensationalized portrayal of the issue. Similarly, the media is accused of exaggerating the severity of climate change to attract viewers, readers, and advertisers. However, this narrative overlooks the fundamental principles of scientific inquiry and the rigorous processes that underpin the peer review system. Climate scientists, like all researchers, are trained to formulate hypotheses, test them through observation and experimentation, and revise their conclusions based on empirical evidence. The overwhelming consensus among climate experts, over 97%, agree that human activities are causing global warming is not the result of a coordinated effort to deceive the public, but rather the culmination of decades of careful research, data analysis, and debate. Moreover, the scientific community is inherently self-correcting, with built-in mechanisms for identifying and addressing errors, biases, and inaccuracies. The peer review process, replication, and open publication of data and methods ensure that research is subject to intense scrutiny, criticism, and validation. While individual scientists may hold varying opinions or interpretations, the collective wisdom of the scientific community is rooted in accumulative evidence, not in personal interests or agendas. The media, too, plays a crucial role in communicating climate science to the public, but its coverage is often shaped by a range of factors, including editorial priorities, audience demands, and the complexities of conveying complex scientific concepts to a broad audience. While sensationalism and polarization can occur, the vast majority of journalists and media outlets strive to provide accurate, balanced, and informative reporting on climate issues. Another factor contributing to the perception of deception is the inherent uncertainty and complexity of climate science. Climate models, by their nature, involve simplifications, assumptions, and probabilities, which can be misinterpreted or exploited by those seeking to undermine the scientific consensus. The inherent uncertainty of climate predictions is often seized upon by critics as evidence of scientific uncertainty or incompetence, rather than a natural consequence of dealing with complex, nonlinear systems. In reality, the scientific community is transparent about the limitations and uncertainties of climate research, and actively works to address these knowledge gaps through ongoing research and refinement of models. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC), for example, provides comprehensive, evidence-based assessments of the state of climate science, which are subject to intense scrutiny and review by experts from over 195 countries. Ultimately, the climate scientists and mainstream media are lying to us about climate change is a misguided and simplistic narrative that fails to account for the intricacies of scientific inquiry, the diversity of media coverage, and the complexities of communicating climate science to the public. Rather than a grand conspiracy, the overwhelming consensus on climate change reflects the cumulative weight of evidence, the rigor of scientific methodology, and the dedication of researchers and journalists to providing accurate, informative, and engaging content. By acknowledging the nuances and uncertainties of climate science, we can foster a more informed, constructive, and evidence-based discussion about this critical global issue.